There's a camera in the women's restroom, Maya Harper announced, her voice slicing through the thick air like a whip crack. The heavy oak doors of the executive boardroom flew open with a bang that echoed down the marble corridors. Papers fluttered, coffee spilled, head snapped toward the entrance as Maya strode in, uniform wrinkled, face taut with urgency, eyes blazing like she hadn't blinked in hours. She stood there, framed in the doorway like a storm, refusing to wait outside. "What the hell is this?" barked Wallace Green, vice president of operations, slamming his palm on the table. "You don't just walk in here, Rec. Get out now." "No," Maya replied firmly, her voice low but immovable. "Not until you hear what I have to say." Silence. A few board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A junior executive scoffed. Someone whispered, "She's trying to make a name for herself. She's always been strange." Another murmured. Maya ignored them all. She raised a trembling hand, held up her phone, and tapped the screen. "There's a hidden camera in the women's restroom vent above the third stall, third floor. That floor belongs to your executive wing." Whispers became audible tension. "Why would anyone plant a camera there?" Green muttered. "That's ridiculous. I don't know yet, but I want the entire board to follow me to security. Right now, we need to check the surveillance records." Are you accusing one of us?" asked Angela Rowe, head of marketing, narrowing her eyes. Maya stared back. "I'm saying someone in this building is violating every woman's right to safety, and I'm not leaving until someone takes it seriously." The room erupted. People spoke over one another, some furious, some alarmed, others already preparing to distance themselves. Then a sharp accusation cut through. "How do we know it wasn't you who planted it, Maya?" That stopped the room cold. "She's the night gatekeeper. She has access." "What if this is a setup?" said a tall man from finance. "Build a case. Get attention. She's smart." "No doubt." Maya's heart pounded. Her fingers gripped the phone tighter. This was the moment when truth was supposed to shine. Instead, she was drowning in suspicion. "I found it. That's the truth. If you think I put it there, fine. But I'm not walking away." As Maya stood alone, gripping the truth while facing a room full of doubt, one thing became clear. Justice doesn't come easy when power protects itself. But silence is complicity, and courage begins with one voice that refuses to be quiet. What would you have done in her place? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. And if stories like this move you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, BUP Stories, for more powerful moments that reveal the truth behind closed doors. That night after her shift, Mia didn't sleep. She sat in her car, notebook in hand, listing every employee who had late-night access to the upper floors. One name kept surfacing. Daryl Kane, Director of Human Resources, quiet, punctual, forgettable. Over the next 3 nights, Maya lingered near the third-floor elevator after hours, hiding just out of view behind a janitor's supply door. She waited. And on Friday at exactly 11:21 p.m., Daryl stepped out of the elevator alone. Looking both ways, Maya pressed record on her old camcorder. Daryl slipped into the women's restroom. Minutes passed. Then he emerged, adjusting his tie, checking his phone. But it wasn't just him. Maya zoomed in. 2 shadowy figures stood at the end of the hall watching. She squinted, her breath caught. One of them was Wallace Green and the other was Lyle Crest, CEO himself. She turned off the camera and whispered into the darkness, "Now we're not just talking about a camera. We're talking about a conspiracy." The next morning, Maya sat silently in the employee lounge, a cold cup of coffee untouched in her hands. The footage on her camcorder burned in her mind like an ember under her ribs. She replayed the scene a dozen times in her head, Daryl Kane slipping into the restroom. And then those 2 men, Wallace Green and Lyle Crest, standing at the far end of the corridor, shadowed by hallway light, watching, waiting. But why? The company was already humming when she stepped out of the lounge. Maya walked slowly down the east corridor, heels echoing against tile. She could feel the shift in the air. People whispering when she passed, eyes flicking away just a second too late. Rumors were multiplying like mold in corners no one dared to clean. In the elevator, 2 interns stood frozen when she entered. One cleared his throat. Miss Harper," he mumbled. "I heard you stormed the board meeting last night." Maya offered no reply, just stared ahead as the elevator dinged and the doors slid open on the 3rd floor. She stepped out alone. This was the executive wing. Sleek gray walls, artwork no one looked at, quiet, clean, and far too cold. The restroom door stood at the far end as always. She glanced up at the vents still there, still watching. Security had sealed off the area overnight, but Maya knew better than to assume that meant anything. The men who ran this company were experts at appearing busy while doing absolutely nothing. She headed for the security office next, a room buried in the sublevel of the building, where retired cops and private contractors sipped coffee and watched monitors for hours. It was there she met Dan Sloan, a former NYPD detective now in charge of internal surveillance. Dan was in his late 60s, all silver beard and sarcasm. But when Mia entered the room, his eyes narrowed with interest. "You again," he said, setting down his paper cup. "You've stirred quite the storm. I brought you something." Maya replied, handing over the camcorder. Dan raised a brow. "Retro. Just watch it." He did twice. And when it was done, he sat back in his chair, exhaled through his nose, and whistled low. "That's Daryl Kane. That's clear. What's not clear is why the hell our CEO is standing in the shadows while a top exec sneaks into a restricted bathroom. That's what I want to know." Maya said. "I want this reported officially. No more whispers. No more brushing things under the rug." Dan gave her a long look. "You realize what you're stepping into here, right?" "I was Army once," she said calm. "I've walked through worse fire than this." Dan leaned back, his chair creaking. "All right, I'll flag it quietly. But this kind of thing, it doesn't just explode. It simmers first. You stirred the pot. Maya, don't be surprised when someone tries to put a lid on you." By midday, the temperature in the building felt 10 degrees hotter. Conversation stopped when Maya entered a room. A group of assistants in the break room paused, drinks halfway to their lips, then turned their backs like schoolchildren hiding secrets. Someone had posted on the internal message board anonymous, of course. "She says she found a camera." How convenient. Another thread. When did janitors start acting like detectives? It didn't take long before she was summoned. Human Resources. 4th floor. Daryl Kane sat behind the wide glass desk, calm as marble. He wore a slate-colored tie matching his expression and gestured to the seat in front of him. "Maya," he said smoothly. "We've received some concerning reports." "So have I," she answered, not sitting. He tilted his head. "About your behavior, about disruptions, about unauthorized access to surveillance systems." She crossed her arms. "You were caught on tape, Daryl." He blinked. "Excuse me." "In the women's restroom after hours with 2 senior executives nearby. You didn't think there'd be cameras in the hallway?" He forced a chuckle. "Maya, that's absurd. I don't know what you think you saw, but you're stepping into dangerous territory." "So are you." They stared at each other. No words, just tension. Then Daryl leaned forward, voice dropping. "You think anyone's going to believe you over me? Over the executive board? Come on, Harper. You've been here 7 years? You're a night shift gatekeeper. A ghost in a uniform." "I'm the ghost who sees everything," she said, voice steel. "And I'm not going away." Back in the lobby, her name was no longer whispered. It was hissed. Some said she was planting evidence. Others claimed she was a disgruntled employee looking for a lawsuit. One even hinted she was mentally unstable, a woman who never recovered after her son died in the war. She ignored them all. Instead, she visited an old friend. Anthony Blackwell, the city lights blinked. Somewhere below, cars moved like veins in a living body. People lived, laughed, worked, loved. Most would never know her name, but they would feel her voice in the laws, in the firewalls, in the questions asked. During hiring, during surveillance audits, during classroom installations, she was there, not to watch, but to remind them that someone always was. In her hand, she held a photograph. Her daughter, smiling, free. She slipped it into a folder marked Next. Because the war wasn't over, only its chapter. Winter came late to Charlotte that year. But when it did, it came hard. The sidewalks shimmered with frost, breath fogged in the morning air, and the trees stood bare like quiet sentinels. Inside a modest community center nestled between two aging Baptist churches, people gathered. Fold-out chairs lined the walls. Thermoses of coffee steamed on donated tables, and in the center of it all stood Maya Harper. She no longer wore a uniform, no name badge, no security patch. But her presence carried the same quiet authority that had once held boardrooms in silence and brought senators to stillness. Today, she wasn't speaking to power. She was speaking to the people who had always been its target. These systems were never meant for us, she said, her voice steady. They were built around us, above us, under us, designed not to protect, but to predict, not to help but to harvest. Dozens of heads nodded. Older faces, younger ones, too. Factory workers, teachers, postal employees, custodians. Some had stories, others had questions. All had one thing in common. They had seen the cost of being invisible. The good news, Maya continued, is that we are no longer unseen. After the passage of the Civic Digital Integrity Act, a wave of reform swept across local governments and corporations. Privacy audits became mandatory. Behavioral prediction models were classified as sensitive tech. Whistleblower protections were expanded. And surveillance with consent became a national conversation. But none of it would have mattered without communities like this. Neighbors holding meetings, filing FOI requests, asking questions at school boards. The fire Mia helped spark had found new keepers. That evening, as the meeting wound down, Rachel handed Mia a small box. No fanfare, no announcement, just a quiet moment between comrades. "What's this?" Maya asked. Rachel smiled. "From the team. From all of us." Inside was a bronze medallion, no larger than a coin engraved with 3 words, "Watcher no more." On the back, for those who lit the match, Maya closed her hand around it. No words needed. Across town, Dan was finishing a presentation at a local university. He now taught part-time digital ethics, public data systems, and cybersecurity for the people. His lectures didn't begin with tech. They began with questions. What does freedom feel like when no one's watching, he'd ask. And what does it mean when someone always is? Students leaned in. They didn't always have the answers, but they left with better questions. Meanwhile, Carmen and Elise continued expanding the Watchers No More network from 6 cities to 16. They launched an app to report unapproved surveillance. They trained volunteers to help others request personal data logs. They even partnered with journalists to verify corporate claims. It was messy, imperfect work, but it was real, grounded, and it was growing. Back in her apartment, Maya stood before her now famous corkboard, mostly bare now, save for a photo of Alton Vickers, still missing. Rumors placed him in Dubai or Singapore or Montana, a ghost made of systems. But Maya no longer chased him because she understood now. Vickers wasn't just a man. He was an idea. One that hid behind every efficiency report, every optimize for productivity memo, every app update that asked for more than it gave. And ideas don't vanish when people do, they vanish when we stop feeding them. On the 1-year anniversary of the Magnus Expose, a commemorative panel was held in D.C., Maya attended reluctantly. She didn't like the spotlight, but she understood the weight of legacy. The room was filled with faces from her journey, some familiar, others new. Survivors, fighters, truth-tellers. The final speaker was a young woman from Detroit, a high school teacher. "I didn't know her," she said, gesturing toward Maya. But her story changed my students' lives. We removed all third-party data tools from our classrooms. We taught consent alongside civics. And most importantly, we taught that silence is not safety, it's surrender. The applause that followed wasn't thunderous. It was human. Maya smiled gently. Her eyes watered, but her hands didn't shake. That night, alone in her hotel room, she wrote a letter. Not to a senator, not to a journalist, to her daughter. You once asked why I couldn't just leave it alone. Why I had to dig, to speak, to risk. The answer is simple, baby. Because no one else would. And because I saw what happens when no one does. The systems don't need us to believe in them. Just to stop looking. I chose to look. I hope one day you will too. She signed it, folded it, and placed it in the same envelope as the photo of her daughter smiling in the autumn light. Weeks passed. Then months, spring came to Charlotte again. The flowers returned, the breeze warmed, and one morning, Maya opened her door to find a small package on her step. No label. Inside was a single flash drive and a note. You were right. The city is bigger than we thought, but so is the resistance. You lit the match. Well, keep it burning. She held the drive in her palm. No fear. Just focus. Because she wasn't done. Not yet. She had watched the watchers, warned the world. And now, as the dawn lit her face, Maya Harper stepped forward once more. Not a gatekeeper, not a victim, but a witness. Still standing, still seeing, and still ready. The story of Maya Harper teaches us that courage often begins in silence. And true justice is not always found in courtrooms, but in the quiet persistence of ordinary people who refuse to look away. It reminds us that systems of power thrive on secrecy and apathy, but they crumble when confronted by truth, resilience, and community. Maya's journey shows that one voice, steady, clear, and unwilling to be silenced, can ignite a movement and restore dignity to those who have long been watched but never truly seen. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, BUP Stories, for more powerful stories like this.